that, right? So here comes the mind trick. I'm going to tell you right now how I want you to lead this thing. The style in which I want you to enact as leaders. All right, so listen to me. I figured it out like this. If I don't tell you, as long as I don't tell you to do something that is knowingly against the regulation, it's illegal, immoral, unethical, and guess what? You volunteered to be here, you took an oath, you got to execute it. So what this LPD is about is the style in which I want you to enact as leaders in your formation. And I'm going to assess it over time with my sensors. I'm going to assess it from the bottom of your formations up. This is the style in which I want you to lead our Army. All right, here we go. Good quote there too by Coach K. Next slide. So what is your leadership style? And what would your troops say is your leadership style? Every one of you have got a leadership style. Samir, you have a leadership style. Every one of you do. Leadership is the most used undertrained word in the Army. We're going to train it. We're starting today, we're going to train it together. Let me tell you something. We will not give birth to a toxic leader. Our time together, company commanders, first sergeants, you give birth to them. They happen when they're your E5s or even the E4s modeling some crazy behavior out of an E5 or E6, or a lieutenant that's modeling some diabolical captain or battalion S3. We cannot give birth to a toxic leader under our watch together. Odds are, there's several of you right here. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you and fix you. I'm going to use the dark rifle way of war. I'm going to find you and fix you. All right? We can't give birth to a toxic leader. And the reason that happens is because we don't attend to this concept of teaching style. Having somebody stand up and tell you the style in which they want you to lead and hold you accountable to it and assess it. That's what I'm doing today. Next slide. All right, so check these out. And Napoleon on top, transformational guy. Washington on the bottom, most would say a transactional guy. Different styles. And the question there in the middle is, are these styles in conflict with each other? No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because you're going to hear me tell you today that you each have a style, all right? It's put into you by your family and your frame of reference and how you grew up and what the Army's done to you. You got to be you in this game. You can't be fake. You got to be you, and that's going to gravitate you towards a certain style. But let me tell you, there are some basic expectations that I demand of you as leaders. Demand of you, because I can, and because I think they're going to help us take us in the direction we want to go. Next slide. All right, so the Army defines it for us. We can all resonate with the stuff that's underlined here. We don't talk about it and train it near enough. I don't think anybody would question the stuff on this slide. Next slide. And then it gives us all these requirements and tells us through this model how to lead. And then what they typically do at BLC or OBC is launch you off into the world to become either Colin Powell or some diabolical tyrant. We're not going to do that in our time together. So our major and I are going to lead in this area. We have an LPD series that we're kicking off now as a part of our battle rhythm, once a quarter with the battalion and MSC command teams. We're going to invest into this because it's that important. None of the stuff that works in the 6 tenets, none of the stuff that works in that 6th one about building teams, none of it works if you're not leading with the style that we need you to lead with. And there's toxicity out there. And there's soldiers that don't want to come and interact with their squad leader or platoon sergeant or lieutenant or company commander. If they leave drill and don't want to interact with that type of leadership team, we're never going to get to the 6th tenet. That's why this style thing is so important. Next slide. All right, here we go. Do you have a style? How does a leader develop style? Is it learned, taught, or modeled? I'll give you my thoughts on it. Next slide. All right, so traits of a good leader. Somebody give me a few. Good leader. Come on, somebody. Inspiring. Honest. Listens. Humility. Oh, that's a good one.
Has integrity.
Integrity. Love it. All great. All exactly right. Exactly right. Traits of a bad leader. Lazy.
Out of shape.
Out of shape.
Demeaning.
Selfish. Demeaning. Vindictive.
Doesn't follow the Army values.
Doesn't follow the Army values. Self-serving. Do you see how the traits of a bad leader usually have more passion associated with them? Why is that? We're humans, that's why. We want to be valued, we want to be appreciated, we want to have a voice. It doesn't fundamentally make us different just because we're in the Army. Humans. When we felt like we're a part of something. That's why we joined in the first place. By our nature, we have this kind of sacrificial idea that we want to ourselves be part of something bigger than ourselves and give of ourselves. Our soldiers want to be connected to that. That's why they hate when we run into these bad traits. They hate it. They feel like they got gypped or they got lied to. So you ask yourself, why does it happen? If it's so obvious to us, you rattle off 20 great traits and you rattle off 20 bad traits. Why is it happening in your formation? Accountability comes up a lot. Comes up a lot. Accountability in the space of leadership. Why does it come up a lot? I offer, we don't train this. We don't train it, assess it. 8-step training model applies to this as much as it applies to individual weapons qual. Why is it happening in our formations that these bad traits are so self-evident? Well, I'll give you the fact that as we join together in this relationship, the Sergeant Major and I, and you at Echelon, that we've inherited some of it. But now we go together. Now we go together. Next slide. Here's how I think it happens. There's this starting point that happens to all of us. It's inevitable. It's life. It's the character, it's our family, it's our values, all these disparate things. We're all raised in different ways. All these unique experiences. It happens to every one of us. And if you don't think that informs your style, you're crazy. It informs it in a huge way. Huge way. Good and bad. And then we get in the Army. And then I think those two things happen up there on the top. One or the other, sometimes a blend of both, sometimes, naturally, there's going to be some blend, all right? And when it goes way off the deep end one way or another, that's where I think toxicity can start to ferment. So how many of us have seen that first one? A lot of times when we were younger. Shaped, a style shaped by the stick and the carrot. The behaviors that got me punished, I stopped doing. The behaviors that got me rewarded, I kept doing. If I had a boss that valued me being some ass to my troops and screaming and yelling at them and running them up a hill to Currahee 15 times, and he valued that and rewarded me for it, I kept doing it. Because I'm a human. I like being rewarded. I don't like being punished. Unfortunately, that development of a style can carry on into very consequential places in our Army. Company commanders and first sergeants. Battalion commanders and battalion sergeant majors, God forbid. That's where toxicity happens. It's the absence. I think the ultimate definition of a toxic leader is the absence of a self-awareness and how it affects the downtrace. I think there can be toxicity in a leader that presents itself as good for that same reason. It's fundamentally the absence of self-awareness and how it affects the soldiers that you're leading. Which is why I'm telling you to gravitate towards the right side of that, which is mentorship, development, and self-assessment. This really hard, vulnerable look at yourself using your mentorship team. I'm not talking about some formal, I'm talking about the mentorship team, people you've served with, asking them about how you're leading, how you're relating, how your message is getting out. That only comes through repetition and vulnerability. There's power in that, though. There's power in that. And not just the people that care about it. Some of the you need to have this openness to assessment from people that you don't necessarily know, but that are in your downstream of communication. And it's got to happen all the time. It's got to be iterative. Snapshots won't help here. But I believe that's how it happens. I believe that's how the style happens. It either starts that way and never fixes itself, or when we get it right, this mentorship, development, self-assessment thing takes over. And then we get transformational leadership that's powerful. But if you're not vulnerable, and if you can't set that ego aside for a little bit to listen to people, you're never going to get there. And that self-absorption is going to hurt your soldiers in a way that you won't know because you're not self-aware. This is fuzzy stuff to some of you. This is powerful stuff to your soldiers, and whether you know it or not. Next slide. All right, so I'm telling you some of the basic things balanced against each other of what I'm telling you as a right leader in our Army. Army of Washington. The right leader does the things on the left side. The wrong leader does the things on the right side. Knowing that there are little spots in time where you have to go back and forth and maybe stand into a breach and correct something and do something very tactical to fix it, all right? So this isn't every time, every instance. But the body of your work as a leader should trend heavily to the left side of that page. Anybody want to challenge me? Hey, but I thought they taught us trust but verify. Not me. You build trust. You spot check, you assess, feedback. Questions here? Roger. Yeah, so I get that question every now and then. So you juxtapose that against shape, right? So this is an echelon thing, right? So I would say company command and above, right? So if you're looking at building something, right? Building something, I like to think of it in terms of shaping an object, right? And handing it off to a subordinate leader for them to make it exactly the way they want it, right? Almost, if you think of it in terms of an intent statement, as opposed to delivering them something that's precise and telling them to execute it, right? In terms of an operation or a task. Because the problem, right, the problem with that over definition or giving them a task like that, it stifles their creativity and it does not grow the buy-in that you want out of them. So what that means, is sometimes I've got to step back and give them space to turn this thing into something, the final product that they want it to be. Knowing that it may not be exactly what I want, but they're going to love it more than me and execute it better than I could have. It's the only way I can really describe it. How about the bottom one? Listens. Sergeant Major.
Sir, what would you say to people who say that the things on the right leader side are not very tangible, but the things on the wrong leader side are the ones that show up in color-coded briefings and you pay attention to them because if they don't do those things, they're red?
Yeah, we're all in this together. I mean, this is an echelon thing. I mean, it starts with me. That's what I'm telling you. I mean, look, this isn't like you're not getting a vote on this style. I'm telling you, the right stuff here needs to be valued and the wrong stuff needs to be cut out. And this needs to happen from my MSC commanders starting today, battalion commanders and company commanders. And Sergeant Major, the only way that we move this over time, 5 years from now, is for our formation at echelon to grow up this way. To grow up this way. I mean, it's tough. You're going to hear me use the word collateral damage a couple times today. This will be the first one. There is going to be some collateral damage in this transition, and in this understanding, and the way we approach these things. Any other questions? All right, next slide. Simple stuff here, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Look, this is as easy as it gets, right? But I wanted you to hear it, all right? My mouth to your ears. Okay, first one, you bet. Second one, you bet. You're not going to do the second one if you don't buy into what we're talking about with the right kind of leadership style. You're just not going to be self-aware enough to do it. How about the third one? How true is that? But we don't say it enough. We don't talk to our sergeants enough about this, about our lieutenants enough. But don't be an ass. Your troops don't want to be around you if you're like that. They don't want to listen to you. They don't want to talk. They want to run away from you. Chaplain.
Hey, guess what your chaplain's supposed to do? Tell you that you're acting like an ass.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But it's just a simple thing. But leaders, you got to assess this as much as you assess how well they execute mission analysis. Some things I'm telling you today about banishing negativity and tending to this with your subordinate leaders. It's important stuff. We've all worked for them. Peer group. The folks that work closely with me know how important the peer group is. The company commander to company commander peer group. The staff, captain to captain peer group. It's incredibly important in style. Because guess what? If you invest into your peer group, you've got the ready-made radar. The people that will tell you that you're acting like an ass. The people that will tell you you're damaging your troops because you're not doing the right stuff for them. Evaluations. Many of us have entered into an evaluation space together. I will always, always, always evaluate you from the ground up. And the officers will hear today my thoughts on competition and boards. But look, the evaluation is from the ground up. It's from your subordinates, your peers, and then the superiors. You know why? Because a lot of people can pull the wool over your eye and manage up. So our major and I are going to root that out by evaluating from the ground up. All right, then you end there with some basic stuff. Intent, buy-in, and behavior. Questions here? Next slide. Brass tack slide. Look at that first one. This is a self-assessment thing, right? So with the flip of this slide, you are now self-aware leaders in this Army. Just by doing this thing on the top, if you're honest with yourself and vulnerable about it, asking yourself that question, would your troops that you're leading right now have confidence in you to do those three things? Your network, your peers, the people that you count on, you have to rely on them to help provide you feedback in that space. And I'm not talking about some Army 360 thing that you send off and get 15 emails about. I'm talking about sitting down with your senior NCOs at echelon and being vulnerable. Hey, did I get this right? Did I communicate right? Was I too rough on Smith in this case? The first part of that is the simplest thing in the world, but it is a powerful thing if you embrace it in your leadership style. And then the second one, of course, that's stuff too. You can all see the thing at the bottom. That is a powerful self-assessment thing for you to think about as a leader, company commander, first sergeant. Because guess what? They're doing that every drill and AT. you better have a mechanism to understand it. If you want to be powerful. Powerfully influential with them. Advocate for them. Next slide. Here's my 10 Bravo rules. Holy smokes. Bullet number 1. He says be liked. You don't have to be liked to be a leader. You just got to be respected. How long did that survive after basic training? There's places, right? This isn't an either or thing. You got to be respected. You're going to earn that respect over time, at iteration, by evaluation and retraining. You ought to fight to be liked. There's no reason in the world not to be. How many of you want to rush to drill and work somebody you don't like? How many of you want to get up in the morning and prepare something really good because you want to work for a boss that you like working for? Isn't that a hell of a lot better than working for somebody you don't like at all? Do you think you get more out of that? More self-satisfaction? Working with somebody that you like working for? That's an important part of self-assessment. This isn't Candyland. This doesn't mean you give out, cookies every meeting. But this understanding of trying as a leader to be liked by subordinates, this isn't a new thing. It's an important thing, especially as guardsmen, the frame of reference we have, the maturity that's out there, and the experiences that are out there, and the sacrifice that is out there. I think you should fight to be liked. Anyone want to question me on that? I get it. Respect's important. Hugely important. It's not an either-or thing. It all goes together. In fact, I would say that if you put a circle around the whole thing and wrote respect at the top, that's respect. Competent, of course. Present. Investor, advocate. Loyalty. Loyalty. Loyalty to the Army. All right? Loyalty to the Army and the organization. Not to a man or a woman. Not to a man or a woman. Loyalty to the Army and to the organization. To the unit. If you got to be loyal to humans, be loyal to your subordinates. Not to a higher human, man or woman. It's not what the Army tells us about loyalty. About the organization. Questions here? And of course, you got to be you. You got to be you. You can't fake this thing. Soldiers will figure that out. And what I've told you in this LPD about leadership style is the expectations I have for your behavior. I'm not telling you anything that's rocket science. I'm telling you to listen, to be self-aware, to find mechanisms to assess yourself, genuinely care about your soldiers, create space where they want to be a part of your outfit. And you'll have to do that in your own context. Because you all grew up from different places. Below that line on that one slide, you all came from different places of the world. They're all uniquely powerful. But the basic tenets here, what I'm telling you to do, I'm going to assess. So our major and I are going to assess. We're going to deploy a machine. That's what we're looking for when we're out with troops. It's how this leadership thing's working. Because we cannot enact the strategy, the vision, without this kind of style. It won't work. It won't work. Questions? Let's see what's on the next slide. There you go. A couple other perfunctory slides. Next slide. Got to do those things. Got to know your troops. Everybody talks about knowing troops. It sounds good. Rolls off really good. There are certain times when you really got to know your troops, and you better take the time before you propose discipline. You better know what's going on. Almost every time something easy comes across the desk for us to decide on, when we stop and try to understand the context of what's happening to that soldier or the family, it gives us a completely different picture. Next slide. And the last two things, specifically included for the junior folks in this room. If you want to win in this game, if you want to win, you will do these two things. You will come up you'll approach each day with some desire to win. Whatever your world is. Just that desire banishes the laziness. And then embracing adversity. The best junior officers and junior NCOs embrace adversity. They're not negative, they don't shy away from it, they accept it and look for opportunity. They look for opportunity. Embrace adversity. All right, next slide. All right, discussion, questions. Getting closer to the breakout. Any questions here about leadership styles? Important stuff. Feedback time. The slide flips. We go together. Excelsior 6.
So my question is this, so can you go back one slide? So daily desire to win, yet in our formation we have a tendency to make sure that we try to retain every single soldier because of numbers. Some of those soldiers are not worth the effort, in my opinion, to retain
Sure.
because pick a reason, right? And to Sergeant Maynard's point and to some other individual's point, maybe it's time for them to leave, but we make every effort to retain them. So to me, that's kind of there's a conflict there. So how do you weigh in on that?
Well, command team to command team dialogue. You know, that's a very nuanced question about winning. So we have to come up with an agreement on what winning is in that space. Our conversation together may mean that winning simply means this period of time to protect against threats, we've got to keep authorized percent fill at a level. And we define it that way. Maybe we reached a point in readiness and reputation where winning means enhancing the quality of the soldiers in your formation and making those tough calls. That's why that's why you and I have to be connected in that dialogue. And you'll notice, it's a really insightful question, because you'll notice that in the tenet there, we say the Sergeant Major and I are going to define winning. We didn't define it because we're going to have all those types of conversations in the context of this strategy to do it. It's good though, good question. Any other questions? Master Sergeant K.
Sir, this goes back a little bit to the 6 tenets. In order to build winning teams that are soldier-centric and develop leaders with knowledge, with an excellence in the basics, do we have a plan? Do we have a plan or how to implement a plan to focus or that includes and supports those low-density MOSs? Because I'm certain we have seen the Army is very good at building a team of infantrymen or building a team of tankers. But we have one NBC NCO in a unit. We've got 4 intelligence analysts in a battalion. How do we support our junior leaders and our soldiers throughout the formation to build them into a winning team with a firm grounding in the basics of not just the profession of arms that we're all a part of, but their specific field?
Yeah, so let me answer it this way. We have an MI battalion in this state. We have an IO group in this state. We have tactical intelligence throughout our formations. And it sounds like we need a strategy to attend to exactly what you're talking about. Well, yeah, but the bigger answer here is the strategy. Right? In the end state right now, it is that we need to build readiness and reputation. What our strategy is going to do for us is peel that back. If we're going to maintain that force structure and win at it, then we have to have a strategy, tactical things within LOEs with that strategy to attend to what you're talking about. We don't have it right now. So I can't get there. I can't talk to you about it right now. I mean, I could provide some very tactical things, but that's what our strategy is going to do for us.
I was just going to say, that actually sets me up for success for when we get into our quick 5-minute drill. But So, and we greatly understand, and I think that's where we as a staff, when we get up and do our 5-minute drills, hopefully we'll give you guys a little bit of a more warm blanket to the soul, especially on some of the things that we have looked at ourselves, took a very hard look in the mirror on where areas that we struggle in. So in the intel community specifically, just Master RNK, because I know your background, you know, we have a council of folks in the IE community that's really truly looking at ourselves and saying, how are we addressing the greater statewide train, man, and equip concerns that are out there instead of leaving our folks out, you know what I mean, a little bit more isolated and unable to reach out and touch them. So one of our goals in this next FY is to figure out how we can better break that mold, stop being nearly as autonomous, and start getting out more into the lower levels to support those troops a little bit better, a little bit more. Does that help?
Any other questions? Next slide. All right, we go together. On this style, we go together. I'm going to hold you accountable to this. All right, 5-minute drill. I mean, you got like 5. Like 4.5 would be better.
Things he said was be yourself. I usually go long-winded, so I'm going to take 20. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
I'm going to drop you right now.
What's that?
I'm going to drop you right now.
Okay, so I'm the Chief of Staff, Colonel John Bettel. I want to give you a couple of things the way I see it based on doctrine. Our responsibility as the staff for the CG and for the Sergeant Major is to support the commander, assist the subordinate commanders, staff, and units, and inform units and organizations outside of our headquarters in order to achieve shared understanding. So we do things like routine decisions, provide subject matter expertise support for each of our functional areas, and provide the control function of mission command through orders, plans, policy, and the application of resources. Our current efforts include evolving the staff to rewrite policy, rebuild and reorganize the staff. We've evolved the battle rhythm to meet the commander's intent, support the commander's intent, and to attempt to synchronize planning a little bit better. So specifically, we've updated and issued the new battle rhythm. The CG is now writing his own intent for specific orders. So you need to pay attention to what's in the ATOs because it's not something that was put together by any force sitting in the 3 shop. The CG is actually looking at this stuff and attempting to communicate to you his intent. We've got a new staff configuration that is effective tomorrow. The G5 goes live tomorrow, and the G3, as you know it, will change, and he'll talk a little bit about that in his piece. We've ordered a policy revision signed by the CG that directs all the staff elements to whack all their policies. He made mention of it a little bit ago with the intent of focusing on the soldier as opposed to focusing on making the bureaucrat's job easier. We're also working to reduce friction between statuses, connect commanders at echelon to what we're doing, and get your input as we work through the various staff problems and processes that we have in order to enable both the CG and his Sergeant Major as well as subordinate unit commanders. With that, I will be followed by the G1, Lieutenant Colonel Blanco.
All right, good afternoon, Rainier team, Rainier 1. All right, so I have a family, and I also have a guard family, right? I serve them as I serve you, right? So in order to do that, I have to build a relationship with you guys, and that is to listen. Listen to what you guys have, the feedback that you guys provide in order to expand the X1's or the G1's role in all of this, right? So the first thing we got is on February 25th, we're going to transform our legacy system, SIDPERS, to IPSE. That's a big deal. It's basically the integrated personnel and pay system of the Army, which is all 3 compos will move to that. We've handed out a handout, which is the commander's guidebook. And I asked that you guys all check in so that I could give you guys credit for taking the class. Okay? I don't do any of this alone, though, so I want to introduce my Sergeant Major Cardenas, if you could stand up, and Chief Dean, who's my deputy. So through all of this effort, those who have had me understand what all of this means, and it helps me understand what you guys are trying to do out in the field. What I also want to talk about is strength, right? Our strength right now is 5486 as an organization, as a team, and we need to get to 5603. Where were we last year when we talked about strength and our strength summit, as some of us leaders out there, is that we have maintained status quo. We haven't gone up and we haven't gone down, right? As the bosses talked about retention and strength and how important that is, every soldier counts. Every soldier means something in our organization. Whether it be what Excelsior 6 talked about, we do have to take a hard look of what that means to our organization, right? And then feedback. For me, as an armor officer in your G1 and a lieutenant colonel, I need your guys' feedback. There's a lot of things we want to change, a lot of things we want to implement as we go into this new system. And I ask for you guys' feedback as we go through some of this. Hua, any questions for me? I'll be followed by Rainier 2.
Test, test. All right, we're back on. All right, so that I don't make you guys jump up and down. So I am Lieutenant Colonel Angie Gentry, absolutely very excited and proud to serve as your State G2. And then just a few things real quick, because I know we've only got a few minutes. But so you are the perfect setup to exactly what I was going to talk about. But more importantly, let me really quickly let you guys know that M-Day-wise, the G2, I have a wonderful full-time deputy G2, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Camarota, and his awesome staff with Mr. Kersoris, Mr. K, as well as Officer Candidate Riley as our full-time staff. And we have a phenomenal M-Day staff as well. G2 Ops is Major Jared Wolf. G2 Plans is Major Christopher Robinson. And then we've got our domestic operations, because we are part of the JFHQ, Lieutenant Colonel Avalar, as well as Major Thieveridge. And we just make this wonderful total package team. And we have never before been so robust as a G2J2 team. So we are super excited about all the senior leader support that we've had to push the intelligence efforts forward. And we also have this phenomenal Intelligence Enterprise Council that meets in part or totally together as much as we can. That's made up of Colonel DeSophie, Colonel Wenner, Colonel DeGroove, Colonel Reinhardt, Colonel Camarota, of course. And so with that said, we've taken a very hard look at, especially when it comes to the 35 series in the States in particular, and asked ourselves, where are some areas that we absolutely need to improve in this last FY? And so moving into this FY, we've got goals and objectives. Some of that is we operate a little too autonomously, and that's just us being honest. We are very unit inward focused, but as we know, the preponderance of our intel soldiers may be in the 56 TIOG, but there is a phenomenal intelligence community that's outside of the 56 TIOG. And so we want to be able to reach out and bridge that gap and make sure those soldiers are supported under state objectives, especially when it comes training, manning, and equipping our soldiers. So real quick, since I probably got 2 minutes left, I do want to make a quick pitch for some of those great objectives. In the Federated Intelligence Program, especially in the last few years, it has taken a village, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to establish what Federated Intel means for this state and for your soldiers. And especially if you're not under the 56 umbrella, you may not know what that is. And if you've got 35 series soldiers, I absolutely ask you to hear that they have the opportunity on any drill weekend in Title 32 status to support real-world training requirements that help them keep their skill sets strong, help them stay very relevant, and sharpen that tradecraft. This is absolutely not in competition of any of your priorities or training objectives at the command level. It is absolutely in support of keeping our soldiers' white space not very white, right? Especially when it comes to a very difficult MOS to manage. So if you've got training space, white space on your training calendar, and you want to plug your soldiers in, we want to absolutely incorporate them into that training. We've also, this last year, I think we've done a great job with our 81st and MICO partners in doing more cross-level unit training, focusing more on intelligence disciplines rather than simply the unit-focused training. And so that has helped spread the wealth when it comes to subject matter experts across the state and capabilities to strengthen our force. Yes, sir. I just got the 30-second Oscar window. All right, and so with that said, branch management is also a key component, whether it be officer or NCO, and we're looking into those areas as well. So we know where we're hurting. We ask you guys to continue to share feedback on where we're hurting, and we want to get at it. With that, I'll be followed by the G3, Colonel Matt James.
Thank you. But Rainier 1 has an announcement.
Oh. Hey, so just a real quick NGAW pit. So I'm your NGAW president as well. So right out there, we're also doing, if you enroll today, if you become a member in the NGAW, we're raffling off Galaxy tablets for one enlisted and one officer. So I encourage you guys to join today. Rainier 3.
Okay, thanks, Chris. All right, Matt James, Rainier 3, your G3, and because Rainier 4 is not here, I'm going to take his time too. All right, G3 team, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Okay, this is the team that exists to help you win. All right? Everybody stand right now. Master Sergeant Walpole, G3, your current ops, G33, First Sergeant Grambo, G33, your current ops, Preston Miller, MRO, USR, your MRO, G35, Jay Wells, your future ops. Who else? Mr. Brackett, FIRO, your FIRO, Callie Kianis, your everything above, everything that involves NTC, product officer, Dan Raymond, your G33, and Adam Suyat, your MRO, and last but not least, the backbone of the G3, Rainier 37, Charles Leah. All right, so we all exist for you. What we need from you guys is for you guys to help articulate your needs and your frustrations, okay, to build that mutual trust and shared understanding so we understand better what you need and what you're having frustrations with. We're kind of like NGB. We're kind of like NGB. If you come visit us, you will understand a lot better how the shop operates, and it will help you get what you need. So we're here to help you. We're here to help you win. A small win for all you guys, for all your soldiers who travel more than 150 miles per drill. $300 a month available for travel now. Okay, brought to you by the G378, who never stood up, I don't think. Okay. Budget and training. So that was a win we've already got for you guys. $300 a month for travel. No, it was quarterly last year. So it was $500 a quarter last year, so that's the improvement. All right, so that's some money we scrounged together for your folks that travel. And then last but not least, I need a plug tonight. So 3-7 did all the legwork. I need to thank Geico one more time for putting out the snacks tonight. I need to thank NGAW for getting the venue tonight. And I need you guys to all buy a couple pops in order to cover the bar tab tonight. All right, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Josh. Hey, David Polkinghorn here, Deputy G4. I work for Colonel Michello. A couple things I want to just leave you with today. We just finished our logistics management seminar, and you've got some great logisticians out there. We brought all the logisticians in, and we gave them training. We listened to them, and one of the resounding things that they do is they work hard for you. But what they need from you is they need your priority, they need your intent, and they need your help. There's things that they do that they need command evidences. And that was one of the things that they stated over and over and over is I want my commander, I want my first sergeant to be involved in what we do. And so if you can do that for us, if you can do that for your soldiers, that soldier first, that'll be great. The one thing I want to leave you with is the IDT lodging program. We manage that at the G4. There's money out there. If you have soldiers that drive more than 50 miles to their IDT weekend, we can put those soldiers up in a hotel, dual lodging. It's a great program, very easy. Your supply sergeant, credit card holder, 15 Echo that is signed by the commander. If you can do that, that'll help your soldiers. Thank you.
This one working? All right, hey, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Daly, your first official strategist. One clap. One clap. Yeah, that's right. Craig Broyles, are you in the audience? Craig Broyles, anywhere? No? Good, well then you won't be able to critique my SAMS stuff, so that's fantastic. Okay, so those who know, I graduated SAMS this year, and eye-opening experience linking tactical tasks or time, space, and purpose to achieve strategic ends, that is operational art. What we're going to be doing with the addition of the G5, the creation of a reconfigured G3, is to get to some of those questions that you have in the back. How am I going to get more time, more space? How am I going to take care of Joe? I'm going to okay? We are going to be looking forward, and we are going to be making sure that we understand what is beyond the next horizon, beyond the next ridge line, and we're going to make assessment based on operational risk. So you saw a quote by Cicero, among many things. And theory, history, and doctrine is kind of where Sam's is at. And if you haven't seen the Dark Rifle Way of War yet on YouTube, I encourage each and every one of you to do it. Craig Broyles is absolutely slaying it there and showing you the level of cognitive ability that we encourage and expect out of each and one of every one of our leaders. And if you want to go to one of these resident courses and you want to become the military professional that you claim to be, we will encourage it and we will push for it to make that happen. Ain't that right, Chief? Yeah, right on. Okay, so if you know the enemy, yeah, that's right. If you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu, right? And there's a myriad of theorists we can talk about, but in brief, here's the deal. We need to understand who we are. We need to understand who we want to be. We need to understand the problem, or the myriad of problems, the interconnectivity, the lack of the branch managers, perhaps, that aren't helping the low-density MOSs, the way we do officer management, NCO management, our system of systems, the spider web, as the commanding general recently talked about. And we're going to pluck this web as we plot it, and we're going to find emergent properties in this complex system. Bottom line is we're going to develop an thorough understanding of what it's going to take to get us to win. So what's that mean to you? It means we're going to get in your OODA loop a little bit. We're going to come see you. We're going to come talk to you. We're going to ask for your honest assessment. You're going to tell me what's broke, I hope, and you're going to tell me what works. And we are going to change the way we approach these problems. And you're going to see a conveyor belt happen between the 5 to the 3-5 to the 3-3, so that we're getting ahead of these things and we are taking prudent operational risks that not only achieves mission success, but maintains the retainability of our fine Washington soldiers. That's all I got.
Good afternoon, Captain Sampuri. So I am not only your G6, I'm the G6 for every soldier in the Washington Army National Guard. So the G6 team is Chief Olmsted, Captain Tang, please stand up, Sergeant Major Knowles, Fasamutika. Anybody else over here from G6 today? All right, so let me tell you this, we are embracing adversity every day, sir. Army network sucks, that's the reality. But we have a daily desire to win. We're gonna try to provide wireless connectivity to every soldier, as a soldier first, and not at the TIOG, not at the TIOG. Whereas TIOG is already wired also for the commercial ISP. The second thing is bring your own device. We're trying to bring the initiative where we can bring your own device. We have wireless connectivity. You bring your device with a CAC enabled. Anything can be possible with that. The last thing, because G5 and G3 and G2 took my time, so I'll just keep it short. The last thing is, if you have soldiers who are interested in IT career field, send them to Building 8. Whether civilian career or GS career, send them to Building 8. We'll advise them, we'll probably help them to route that certification map, and that will help them for Army career and their civilian career. That's it. Thank you. I'll be followed by Colonel Walker.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Tom Wargo. I'm the Deputy USPFO and G8. I work for Colonel Cooper, who is the actual USPFO. So basically what we do in the USPFO is we get you resources and stuff, but part of the deal also is to try to keep you out of jail, right? So I know I've heard a lot of different, I guess, terms or labels for the USPF. I've heard USPF no, right? So we always say no, whatever. My favorite's USPF go screw yourself. I've heard that one before. But believe me, we are actually trying to say yes in everything we do. We have to be able to operate within the black and white, but we also know that there's sometimes we're going to have to be operating in the gray. We just ask that you come and talk to us about that, and we'll work with you. We're going to try to find a way to yes. And Colonel Polkinghorn mentioned, the second thing I'm going to talk about is the logistic management workshop that happened last week. Really good. But one of the other pieces of feedback we got from that as well is that sometimes soldiers are having a hard time telling you commanders and leaders no on things. And that's kind of tempting them to do things maybe outside of the scope of what they can do. So I just ask, be cognizant of this rank that you have, be cognizant of the authority you have, and encourage your guys to tell you no and explain why. I just want to get that message out there. So thank you very much. And I think, am I the last one on the G staff, or you have anybody else, sir? All right, I'll be followed by the chaplain.
Who else?
No, I just said, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Hey, I already spoke once, but I just wanted to say something. All chaplains and religious support assistants, go ahead and stand up real quick. All right, there's a few. Okay, so I just wanted to say this. Yeah, you can go ahead and sit down. So we work in the business of hope. Okay, we work in the business of hope. And with that, my expectation of our religious support teams, UMTs, is that they are going to give you a good product as it pertains to the to conducting ministry. That's just what I expect, okay? They're going to conduct ministry well in your units. But here's my I can't say tasking now, but my expectation of them from this point forward. They are going to provide good ministry, but I'm going to encourage them to make the connection with the human domain that I was talking about earlier. And that's encouraging them to be in relationship with their command teams in this sense, that they are there to be able to speak truth to power. And that's this whole idea of feedback, being able to talk with you as company commanders, first sergeants, sergeants major, to where they are there to give you feedback, honest, transparent feedback that is intended to try to help you function in maybe a different way of functioning. So that's my expectation that I'm going to be working on in the next, hopefully 3 to 4 years with our UMTs, that they are able to facilitate trust in your units. We're also the ones that are doing strong bonds. So you all know that, hey, we're the folks that conduct strong bonds. And just so you know, we have resourcing to conduct 4 strong bonds events this fiscal year. Okay, so those 4 are coming up. So I'll be encouraging communication through the UMTs at your units. If any of you high-speed commanders want to conduct a unit-specific function, I'm always willing to talk about that. So please, that's part of the feedback loop that I'd love. If you've got different ideas as to how to minister to your units better, hey, I'd love to hear that. I am the only full-time chaplain in the Washington Army National Guard, so I'm here for not just full-timers, but for you M-Dayers too. So I'm the full-time guy, and I'm a staff of 1. So go ahead and get a hold of me anytime you would like. Any questions of me?
Okay. All right, look, I've challenged the staff to critically analyze everything they do. Everything they do. Ask the why. At some point, our G5 will put all that into something that makes sense for us. But I want them to critically analyze why they're doing the things they're doing. And I want you to do the same thing. And for you company commanders and first sergeants back there, we talk about you a lot. All right, but listen to me. You, company commanders and first sergeants, can reach out directly to any of the folks that just stood up here. All right, you're skipping echelon, going the other way. Let the brigade commanders and battalion commanders here quake. I don't care. Reach out directly to these folks because they can make stuff happen for you, all right? It's good by me. All right, next slide. I think we're getting ready for our breakout. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to break you out. The officers are going to stay right here. The NCOs are going to go into the auditorium. The warrant officers are going to go outstairs and probably go up somewhere with Chief Gordon. All right, and listen to me. I want everybody back in here at 16:30. All right, so you got about 5 minutes to get yourself right. Be set, and then back in here at 16:30.